know, there are not too many people who can talk about the glory days of San Diego's TV news history from the late 70s, 80s, 90s. Lee Swanson can. Imagine managing the strong personalities of that era, the Harold Greens, the Michael Tucks, Carol LeBeau, Bree Walker. Lee Swanson did. To kick things off, we start off with the man who will introduce our Gold Circle nominee marking 50 years of work in the media, Lee Swanson. J.W. August may be San Diego's best known off-air broadcast journalist. He has a room full of Emmys from his work as a producer at Channel 10 and Channel 7 and Press Club and SPJ awards in both television and print. He's retired several times, but just won't stop. JW.
Oh, well, before I begin my speech, it's about 15 minutes. Let me get all the papers ready. I want to say hello to my colleagues at NBC7. After I had lucky to spend a long career at 10, I had a chance to go work at 7. That was some of the best 5 years of my journalism career. I want to thank them. Congratulate Monica. Is Monica here? Oh, okay. And thank Greg. He was the best news director I ever had. Congratulations, Monica. Now let me get going. He is a man from Minnesota, walking in the footsteps of other famous citizens from the land of the Golden Gopher. Hubert Humphrey, Walter Mondale, Eugene McCarthy. And like Bud Grant of the Vikings, they never won the big one. But they inspired the young Lee Swanson about the importance of being able to say to any man and any woman, "You betcha." If you look at Lee's bio, you'll see he did everything to learn the trade and climb the ladder. When television stations wanted to hire him and give him a call, like Waterloo, Iowa, Portland, Oregon, Houston, Texas, and San Diego, his answer was always, "You betcha." My first day at the new job at 10 News, I was fortunate or unfortunate, depending how you look at it, to meet Lee, the 5 p.m. producer. He was really the maestro of our hour-long newscast of record. First time ever in the television news booth, and watched Lee perform his magic, handling, advising, helping, the field reporters calling in, the director, the TV, the weather person, and most importantly, the anchors. He brought it all together in a smooth fashion for the newscast, ending the program with a flourish, with clever stories for viewers to overcome the pain of watching an hour newscast. Clever stories like the popular, remember the water skiing ducks? They were good. A dog riding on a surfboard, or dwarf bowling, which we would learn later was very inappropriate. One of our anchors told us that. So when Lee took off his headset in the booth after the show wrapped, it was my first chance to talk to him, and I was kind of nervous. I said, "Mrs. Swanson? Mrs. Swanson?" He looked at me with that Lee Swanson look, and the 3 words he gave me prepared for my future in television. 3 words, by saying, "Get lost, kid." But our relationship would improve over the years to come, and I grew fond of this man from Minnesota. I'm sorry I have to say this, NBC7. He was the best newscast producer in town, and his other work, like handling our live political coverage from everywhere, including, you remember, Golden Hall, and his 10 years running our Oscar coverage with ABC out of Los Angeles. His first year that he did that, it was the 67th Oscars, I believe. Oh, Josh, I left, right? The Oscar winner was a highlight for Lee. His first year there, he recalls it was a highlight for him. The Oscar winner for Best Actor gave him a box of chocolates. You're gonna have to guess who was the best actor. He still has those chocolates. Seriously, Lee has a great sense of humor. You should see his golf game. He has the driest wit you will imagine. How dry? So dry, it would make a cactus look for a drink. His delivery is part Henny Youngman, old school Catskills comedian, and Rodney Dangerfield, who, by the way, is Lee's favorite movie is Caddyshack. Unfortunately, Lee is not shy or ashamed to tell the same joke over and over and over again. But he still gets a laugh. And I thought while I was here, I'd try out one of Lee's favorite jokes, and it's not gonna be long. And remember, he's the teacher, I'm the learner. The patient says, "Doctor, it hurts when I do this." The doctor says, "Then don't do that." See, you got to come up here and do it. That was a joke. Boy, was that quiet. A number of employees gave me some anecdotes and quotes about Lee. All were interesting. All praised him for his composure under fire, his superlative writing ability. But my time is almost up. And former Herb Cawthorne, AKA the poet, nails it with this poem he wrote for this occasion. It's called A Tribute to Consistency. And I'll try to emphasize the rhymes. In hurricanes, bombs, crashes, and death, always steady, clear-eyed, and calm, he kept all of us together like a natural Valium newsroom bomb. We came to him eyes washed with fear as news directors jump, holler, and scream. He was there cool as a breeze in the sunshine. He went over our copy like mint-soothing cream. Always rock solid. It's never about him. No favorites, no changing his voice, his tone. He took us lost souls, weak-kneed by disaster, made us feel strong and never alone. I thank him for being that guy, helping me hone this difficult skill. Acknowledging Lee Swanson's work today is my distinct honor and thrill. That's from Herb. That's it for me. Thank you very much. Oh, one thing. I am now going to use I Betcha. I'm working on that. And here comes Lee. Hey, come on.
Who was that guy? Look. August, hey. Mr. August. No, look, I woke up this morning, I saw spots before my eyes. Did you see a doctor? No, just spots. That's the joke. They asked me for about 8 minutes, and I'm a producer, so. I don't know why I wanted to be in TV news. I genuinely don't. It was the only thing I ever wanted to do. I didn't know anything about TV news. I'd watched it some, but I went to college. I declared a major in broadcast journalism, and 4 years later, I'm in the J School library with a copy of Broadcasting Yearbook, and I open it up to the A's, and I start copying out names and addresses so I can send out cover letters and pictures and things. And I didn't have much of a resume, but you know, it's places like Abilene and Albany and Albuquerque and Bakersfield and Baltimore and Buffalo and Chicago and Denver and Evansville and Flint and Grand Rapids and Houston and Indianapolis, Joplin, Kansas City, Louisville, Memphis, Nashville, Omaha, Pennsylvania. There are no Q's. Raleigh, Saginaw, San Diego, Sioux Falls, and then the phone rang. Sioux Falls, South Dakota is looking for a reporter / photographer, film photographer. Guy says, "You think you can do that?" I said, "Yes." I figured if I said no, he'd hang up, and I didn't want to write any more letters. So they hired me, and I learned a lot about television in Sioux Falls in a short time. I learned particularly I'm a really bad news reporter. I have no business being a news reporter. I am far too introverted to ask hard questions. I'm too shy to ask easy questions. But you know, give me a feature idea and I can just write the hell out of it. But I was stuck. I mean, you know, this is what I wanted to do, and there I was doing it. And I did learn a lot about television in Sioux Falls, but I answered an ad for a station in Waterloo, Iowa that was looking for a weekend sports anchor and 3 nights a week news reporter. And I thought, I'm cut out for that. I don't much like sports, and they don't much have sports in Iowa. And you know, night reporter in Waterloo, what possibly could happen? Now, the news director there was also the 10 o'clock anchor, and so a lot of times he had, you know, the meaningless news director stuff he had to do in the evenings. And so he would write a few national stories, slide them into the 6 o'clock scripts, and call it the 10 o'clock news. I'm sitting there trying to look busy, and one day he walked by and said, "Tom, could I rewrite some of this stuff?" And he said, "The most important thing that's ever been said to me." He said, "Kid, you go ahead, do whatever you want." So I took packages, and I tore them down to VO bytes, and I took VO bytes and tore them into voiceovers, and I took network packages that measured a minute 45 and cut them down to 52 seconds. And I was having a great time. And pretty soon I was coming in on those 2 days off just to do the 10 o'clock news. And he called me into his office one day, and he said, "Here, call this guy. He's got a job opening in Dayton." So I called him, and they flew me out there, and I talked to the news director some, and mostly I shadowed the executive producer because he was doing the hour newscast at 6 that I would do if I was hired for the job. And he was not writing a lot, but he had a pencil behind his ear, and he'd erase numbers, and he'd write numbers on another column, and then he'd erase that. He'd keep changing these numbers around, and I watched him pretty carefully, and I asked him some questions, and he asked me some questions. And I flew back to Waterloo, and I said, "Tom, I can't do that job." He says, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I don't know how to do that stuff." He said, "Well, then let's start doing it here. You'll pick it up." And so I came up with like a template for a newscast rundown and started learning how to back time. I would subtract my checkbook by 60s, you know. And I still would if I had a checkbook, but after a while they found somebody else to do weekend sports, and I was doing the 6 and the 10. And then Tom left, and he went to WGN Radio to do morning drive news. I think that's a pretty good job. And we kind of kept in touch a little bit, but one day he called me. It wasn't easy because, you know, he was working mornings and I was working nights, but he called and he said, "Write down this number." So I did, and I said, "What's that?" And he said, "They've got a job opening in Greenville, South Carolina." So I called, and they flew me out there, and they offered me the job, and this time I said yes. And I called Tom, and I said, "Hey, I'm moving to South Carolina," and he flew back from Chicago just to help me pack. I drove off to Greenville. When I got there, they'd fired the news director. He was the only person I knew there and the only person I'd ever met. And I figured, but you know, here I am. I got to stick with this because I got nowhere else to go. And before too long, it was out of the blue, and I don't really know how he found me, but the assistant news director at the ABC station in San Diego, California, perhaps you're familiar, called me and said, "We're looking for a producer out here. We've got the beach and palm trees, and we hardly ever have earthquakes." I swear that was his pitch. "Would you like to come out here?" And I said, "Okay." So they hired me for it, and I was producing the 5 o'clock news. And after a while, I thought I should be an executive producer in a San Diego size market. You know, Phoenix, Denver. I'm not going to go through the whole alphabet. But nobody would talk to me, and I applied for an EP job in Houston. They promoted their 10 o'clock producer and then hired me to do the 10 o'clock. And, you know, this was a top 10 market now. All right. And it paid pretty well because, you know, it's Houston. Not a lot of people would go there unless they paid well. If you've been in Houston, I mean, Summer times are, Houston's hell with humidity. But, you know, I was okay in Houston for a while, and then a guy who I'd crossed paths with along the way somewhere called me and said he had just taken a news director job in Portland, Oregon, and wanted to come out there and be his assistant. And I said yes. And after 4 years there, they fired the news director, and the new guy wanted his own best friend to be his assistant, and so I found myself driving back to San Diego. And somebody called me from Channel 10, and we said, hey, we understand you're back in town. Would you like to come back and produce the 5 o'clock news? So I did. And I kept in touch with Tom, the news director, the guy from Waterloo, because he had done a lot for me. And somewhere along the line, people had invented email, so it was very easy then to keep in touch. And I would write to him, and he'd write to me, and we had this long string. And one day we found out we were both going to be in Maui on vacation at the same time. So we said, well, we really ought to have lunch or something. So we found a place to have lunch, and I think the restaurant was about to close by the time we left. I looked at him and I said, Tom, I owe my entire career to you. I mean, nothing would have happened if it hadn't been for you. And of course, he disagreed, as you're supposed to do when somebody gives you a compliment like that. But I really meant it. And the truth is, I'd still be in Waterloo if it weren't for him. I'd still be in Sioux Falls if it weren't for him, except they would have found out by now what kind of reporter I was, and they would have fired me, and then what would I have done? But I guess my point is that if you see like an intern walking around your station or something, scratching his head, pull him aside and sit down with him and talk to him about things that there are to do in television news, and maybe they'll find their own niche, and maybe someday you'll get a free lunch in Maui out of the deal. I don't know. Along the way, I worked for 7 television stations and 12 news directors. Let that be a lesson to you. And I think 9 general managers. But it was a good run. And I still don't know why I was in television news, but I guess it's too late to look back now. Oh, there's my time.